Hello and welcome to another edition of the Steelers Depot live stream here on this Monday. I am Alex Kozora. Joining me as always is Dave Bryan, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us today. Steelers Nation, appreciate your patience. I know we were supposed to have the live stream last Monday. As I noted last week, we're going to skip that and go to this Monday since I was recovering and feeling a whole lot better right now. Also, quick programming note, I'll mention this a couple times. We'll have a live stream next Monday as well. So one right before the NFL draft to keep us on our schedule, which would have occurred had we had the one during our normal schedule last Monday. So point is, live stream now, live stream next Monday as well. Dave, thanks for being here. How you doing?
All right. Happy Monday. Happy Paul Skeens Day. Hopefully he can solve the Steelers, or not Steelers, the Pirates issues as of late on the mound. His last outing wasn't all that great. So anyway, a lot to look forward to. You got the draft in a little less than 2 weeks. So here we go. We should have some good questions tonight.
Yeah, as always, Dave and I here until 8 p.m. Eastern time answering as many of your Steelers questions as possible, so appreciate you guys hanging out with us. You want a guarantee of your question being asked and answered, you can send us a super chat and move to the front of the line. No obligation to do so, but we appreciate them all the same. And a super chat just coming in right now from Quentin Chandler for $2, so appreciate that. Not sure.
Alex, before we get started, how about we be the ones that start off with a couple of questions for the chat tonight? Why don't we ask some questions?
Sure.
And kind of ask this at the I think at the tail end of the podcast today. You and I had a real good discussion about if either Derek Harmon or Kenneth Grant were both on the board still at 21st overall, and you were to choose a defensive lineman there, who would you choose and why? Let's go ahead and add Walter Nolan just for to add another choice to this, just in case he was to fall and be on the board there. Let's ask the chat that if, let's say, all three of those guys, Walter Nolan, Derek Harmon, and Kenneth Grant, if all three are on the board there and you have to take one of those three there. I know a lot of you will probably say, I'm not going to go that way. I'll go somewhere else and all. But just picking of those three players alone, who are you picking? Who is the best fit for the Steelers? And, if you dare, if in the chat, give us a quick reason why you choose that one of the three players there. So I think that would be a good way to start off this live stream, is to us ask a question and about three potential candidates there for defensive linemen.
Yeah, and got a couple of responses in. The first four are all Walter Nolan, and so that is the consensus right now. I do a poll, but I'm a mess at trying to create those, and so we'll just look at the chat here, but it looks like so far almost everyone's saying Nolan. Dark Shine the Kid does say Grant, Bones, and Quentin say Derek Harmon, so we'll kind of see those throughout the live stream here.
Okay.
Let's get to the super chat from Quentin Chandler, $2 super chat. Appreciate that. He says Shamar Stewart round 1, Jamari Caldwell round 3. Thoughts? And speaking of Stewart, the NFL just released the 17 prospects who will be attending the NFL draft this year. Shamar Stewart, one of them, 3 quarterbacks attending as well in Cam Ward, in Jackson Dart, and Jalen Milroe. So that suggests the NFL believes those quarterbacks will go fairly early, likely within the first round, although some guys have fallen out. Stewart among that list of 17. Pittsburgh brought him in for a pre-draft visit. I just don't know, what the point of bringing in Shamar Stewart would be if you're Pittsburgh to draft him when you have TJ Watt. I know all that discussion right now about contracts going around. Dave and I are probably less concerned than others. I'm not really sure what the benefit would be of drafting a Shamar Stewart in the first round.
Yeah, 6'5", 267 pounds. It seems like this guy, if the Steelers were to draft him, you're talking about a really an outside linebacker more than anything in the Steelers system. It's hard to imagine a guy like him bulking up to even 285 or anything like that, somewhere even close. I mean, that barring the Steelers actually trading TJ Watt, which I've made it clear that I just don't think that's going to happen. But it's kind of curious that they even have kind of paid him to mind and would bring him in for a visit like they have. So I would be pretty floored if Shamar Stewart was the pick.
Me as well, but I don't know if this is a situation of the consensus is the top of the draft class is not as strong as other years. There aren't as many blue chip prospects. The quarterback class is obviously weaker, and so is it just let's get some really talented guys in a pool that is not as strong at the top as other years. Maybe it's just due diligence. We'll have to wait and see. But I would not go with Stewart in the first round. Caldwell in the third round, an option if you don't go D-line in round one. I don't know if he'd be my number one choice there, but that is, I think, a more realistic possibility, Quentin. All right, let's go back to the questions here. And Brian Jonker, the first one to ask one. Just a reminder as well, if you guys could like this stream, would really appreciate that. And also, I'm going to have on the channel within the coming days a date to hopefully do a live mock draft. Still want to do that with you guys before next Thursday kicks off. So hit the like button, subscribe, check out the site on screen, SteelersDepot.com, all that good stuff. Let's go to Brian now. He says he's got a couple questions. We'll try to get to a couple of them. Does signing Kenneth Gainwell mean they won't draft a running back this year? No, they're drafting a running back this year. They've shown so much interest. They brought in 8-9 running backs for visits. They will definitely draft a running back, Brian.
Yeah, I agree. It's hard to imagine with all the attention that they paid during the pre-draft process here. And look, I mean, Gainwell, it's an okay addition, overall, but I mean it's not going to be long term by any stretch of the imagination. I expect, and I'm sure Alex would think this as well too. At some point between now and week one, barring injuries, I think Cordell Patterson's out of there. Just hard to imagine. Him staying. The reason he probably hasn't been cut up until this point is they want to make sure they get through the draft. There's not a huge amount of cap savings to be had overall when it comes to him right now. So you can kind of wait and until after the draft. I don't think I want him going to training camp and risking getting injured or anything like that. So I think it's clear that you need another running back in that room. You've obviously got Jaylen Warren tendered on a reserve as a reserve free agent this year with the tender, and we'll see what happens with him, whether or not they work out a long-term deal with him moving on into the summer. But yeah, it feels like you're going to have another hole in that room. And then once again, as much attention as they paid to this position and bring in this amount of guys that they brought in for pre-draft visits, it speaks volumes about them going to draft from that position at some point here. And
understand that as things stand today, Jaylen Warren and Kenneth Gainwell are free agents after 2025. Warren was restricted this year, and Gainwell signed a cheap one-year contract. So the longer-term outlook, not that you have to draft a running back super in advance notice. Obviously, they're more plug-and-play, but point being, there's uncertainty about that running back room beyond 2025. So they're going to draft one, and Gainwell is not going to prevent them in any way, shape, or form. Also says, Brian does, this is a deep D-line class. What do you think about drafting a cornerback in round 1 and still getting a solid defensive lineman in round 3 or 4? It's possible. But I think you take advantage of a good defensive line class and not settle for kind of what's left over, even knowing the depth, which will dry up at some point because teams will recognize the strength. Everyone needs D-line help. Everyone wants pass rush help. And so it is a strategy. You don't want to lock yourself in and say you have to take defensive line in round 1. Probably not my top approach, though.
Yeah, I would agree with that as well. And the thing is, okay, you say this is a deep defensive line class, but how many guys outside of the first round are guys that might be multi-contract guys? And not only that, even if that wasn't the case, how many of these guys outside of round 1 are going to help you in one of the primary goals this offseason, and that means get better against the run? Yeah, you've got some of these guys are pretty good, either pass rushers, maybe a handful of them are okay against the run. But I mean, the top of this class is the top of this class for a reason. And that's specifically why we, throughout this process, we've been talking about guys, Mason Graham obviously going to probably be gone, but you look at, say, the top 4 overall, or maybe even top 5 in this class, however you want to rank them, Mason Graham, Derek Harmon, Kenneth Grant, Walter Nolan. The team's obviously seems to have shown some interest in Darius Alexander. He might just be on the pre-draft visit list tomorrow as part of that final group there. And then really once you get outside of that, if you're talking about this team doesn't have a second round pick right now. You have to wait until, let's say you had to wait until the third rounder. Who's even going to be there? You're probably looking at like a Joshua Farmer or I don't know, Ty Robinson. It's hard to say for sure, but maybe a Jamari Caldwell in the fourth or something like that, more of a nose tackle type. But I think you got to come out of this draft. At least my thoughts, assuming that you don't go a position other than defensive lineman. And yes, I know the quarterback talk's going to be on the, going to continue up until draft day here. It does make you kind of wonder that if they don't go defensive line in the first round and they don't recoup either a second round pick or a high third round pick throughout this thing and just stay with their second pick as being their third rounder as it's listed now, what's going to be left for them there?
Yeah, it's a great point, and the uncertainty would make me a little anxiety-ridden if you go from first to third round, don't take defensive linemen in the first round, no other way to get draft capital, and then you're just waiting for, full day plus to see what you're left over with at such a critical position. Now, if a quarterback is there in the first round, you love him. We've had the discussion. You may go the quarterback and have to just figure it out, but I don't know if I want to necessarily lean on that depth, knowing that Pittsburgh only has 2 picks in the top 120 of this year's draft. Mike Adesso says, good article, Alex, on Steelers and Bloodlines. Thank you, Mike. He says, it reminded me of something I've wanted for years. Where is Carl Pickens? I never hear about him defending his son or explaining antics. I know this is George Pickens' dad, by the way. He's tweeted occasionally. I don't follow him on Twitter, so I don't know exactly what all he says. He has made a couple comments from time to time, but he's usually pretty non-combative or I don't know what you want to say. There's not a lot of tweets, I think, about him talking about his son and the Steelers, which is probably, I think, for the best.
Yeah, I think he has me blocked on Twitter.
There you
go. For something I've either the site's written or something, I don't know. I haven't paid too terribly much about attention to him.
Stephanie says, hey, Alex and Dave, listen to the podcast this afternoon in hopes of getting more detailed review on Shedeur Sanders. Do you feel he could fit in Pittsburgh under Arthur Smith? Stephanie, we'll hopefully talk about that for Wednesday's show once Dave and I have gone through enough tape to really have a good discussion on that. But Dave, what you know so far on Sanders, do you think he fits the Arthur Smith system ideals?
I think he can fit, obviously. Look, he's more of a pocket passer. I think he is a guy you could use on some of those half rolls and boots and all like that. He's obviously has the ability to extend plays. But, much about what we talked about with these past 2 quarterbacks, and specifically I think Russell Wilson when he was in here. And one of the knocks on Shedeur Sanders is people have talked about that ball padding and all like that. You've got to find out a way through his mechanics and through his development at the NFL level to find a way for him to get rid of the football quicker. If not, you're going to run into a situation where he's having to extend a lot of plays, or he's going to be taking a lot of sacks at the NFL level. Is this a processing thing with him? Is it just a timing thing with him? It's hard to say overall, and that's one of the things too. I want to watch more tape with him, and I looked at my YouTube TV and all. I've got tons of games that I record everything imaginable that says college football on my UTV subscription, and I've got I've got more games than I've ever had before. And I know Colorado. I've got most, if not all, of the games from Colorado and a few other ones that I want to go back and watch before we talk a little bit more about him. But at a core, do I think they could work with a guy like Shedeur Sanders? Yes, I do. But once again, I think his he's a little bit of an undersized guy at 6'1.5". Overall, he's a guy, while he does have mobility, he's not uber mobile, a la the Cam Ward type or the Jalen Milroe type there. So you're going to have to work on tweaking things to the things that he does best. And one of those things is him being a pocket passer. And you're going to have to find a way to get the football out of his hands quicker.
Yeah, it's a complicated question. We'll definitely discuss it more for Wednesday, Stephanie. There are some things I think that certainly can fit. Some of the yak throws, accuracy over the middle works, as Dave talked about, the mobility to boot out and play in space and get out on the move and change the launch point. He can do all of that. I just look at Pittsburgh's offense, even a little above just what Smith has, but how Pittsburgh is at least currently constructed with the two big vertical outside receivers in George Pickens and DK Metcalf. And does Sanders fit with that? With a lack of arm strength, you watch the tape, the deep ball hangs. Receivers have to consistently slow down for some of those vertical throws, have to bail them out. I just don't love the fit there. So there are some things attractive about it. You're talking long-term, 10-year plan with Sanders, not just who's on the roster right now. There are some things that fit, but I don't think he's the strongest scheme fit for the Arthur Smith offense and system. Got a couple of very generous super chats in here. One from Hash for $20. So thank you so much, Hash. Really appreciate that. He says, do you think eliminating two-a-days makes it harder for coaches to evaluate quarterback competition battles in training camp, being that coaches have less time to evaluate players before the season starts? It's a really good question. I mean,
how long is this league's done without two-a-days? And we've still seen, good quarterbacks come throughout the league and all like that. I mean, how long has it been since two-a-days have been around?
Was it? I'm not even sure. Was it the 2010 CBA that changed that, or was that even earlier than that? I can't quite remember. I mean, I think. Go ahead.
You used to have kind of the earlier kind of walkthroughs more than anything, right? I mean, they weren't full blown practices back then.
I mean, I think it depends how far you go back, and it probably varied a bit. But yeah, some of it was, as you said, morning walkthrough, afternoon practice, or vice versa. I mean, anytime you have less practice time, less information, it makes decision making more difficult. You could sit there and say, how about fewer preseason games makes quarterback battles harder to judge? We used to have 6 preseason games. Now you have 3, and they're going to probably cut that down to 2 here when they go to 18 games for the regular season. So any information that you lose makes things tougher. But I just think inherently quarterback play is scarce in the NFL. Trying to find 32 talented starting quarterbacks, barring even injuries that you get into, is just hard to do. It's a supply-demand issue. And so that's probably just the biggest difficulty of it all. There's only so many guys on the planet that can play at that super high level consistently, and there's like 10 guys maybe that can do that, and everyone else has to try to figure it out. So I'd probably cite that as a bigger issue. But sure, any decrease in practice on field time. But you could also argue the other way and say, look at virtual reality and the reps that's getting teams, and technology, advanced analytics that's able to track things. Talk about Jaden Daniels, the work they did in Washington with VR to replace those reps also has a factor. Not a competition, but just evaluating, growing, developing quarterbacks. So that's a long-winded answer to sit there and say, yeah, there's probably an impact, but negligible would be my answer there, Hash.
And you can put someone in a machine as much as possible, like a flight simulator. But until you're up against a real live situation, you really don't know sometimes how a player's going to act, because you can't recreate every situation imaginable. But on top of that, I mean, the quarterback position is such a tough position to play at the NFL level, and that's why we went through that period of, what was it, 20 or 25 years, where it was either a quarterback name with a last name Brady, Manning, Roethlisberger, who else?
That was about it from the AFC side.
Yeah, Flacco got shoehorned in there somewhere. But yeah, I mean, everybody gets the drift of, yeah, you might be good enough quarterback play to make the playoffs and win a couple of playoff games, but how did those same group of guys, 5, 6, 7 quarterbacks, whatever the list was, were the ones that were continuously winning the Super Bowls? Mm-hmm. I mean, it's the hardest position to figure out. There's no exact science to it. I mean, you had the old Bill Parcells 7 things to look for list, and that might actually be coming back in vogue now with these kids staying in school longer with the NIL. But even getting a guy that checked all of the 7 things you look for in a franchise quarterback, even that's not foolproof, as we've seen over the years there. But these guys, for the kids that do come out after just, let's say, two seasons as a starter, they haven't seen everything, and then you got to get them into the NFL, and these organizations are rushed to get these first round quarterbacks on the field, and because of look, if I don't get him on the field and find out what he is, I might be. My job as a head coach or general manager might be done. That's why sometimes I think it's better if an organization can stand it is to kind of not speed up that process. But even so, once you do get a kid on the field, as we talked over the years, it seems to take a good 20 games to find out 20 starts or so to find out whether or not you do or don't have potential a franchise quarterback. And there have been quarterbacks that have gone past that mark that have ended up not being, the worth of their draft pick anyway. So it's just such a hard position to evaluate. And I would not cycle any of it back to, related to, the amount of practices and all that teams have.
Just a bit of Steelers adjacent quarterback news here. I'm reading off half a tweet that popped up on my phone from Tom Pelissero. The Giants plan to work out Shedeur Sanders on Thursday as his last workout. He's visited the Raiders today, Sanders did, and the Giants taking one last look at him on Thursday, even though they were at that Colorado showcase earlier this month and well attended, but the Giants still doing their homework, and so can't rule out Shedeur Sanders at number 3. All right, next super chat will come from, a thank you again, Hash. Got a couple more in here. Superstar SS, $5. Appreciate that. Says, during the league meeting, was there any talk of the same foot twice rule, or is it such a rare play there is no need to? Thank you for the super chat. And also a quick call, if you guys could hit the like button, as Bryan said, we really appreciate that to get as many Steeler fans in here like Superstar SS. I am not aware of the NFL of any team proposing a rule change, in that if any team was going to, you think it would be Pittsburgh, considering how they were hurt by it this year. But to my knowledge, it was not brought up, at least not to the point of a vote or proposal.
Yeah, that's a good after the fact question. That had sort of slipped my mind there, and I like you, I don't remember any of that coming up in any of the rules that were proposed there.
Right. Pittsburgh's proposal was about changing and tweaking some of the communications that teams could have with players, be able to have a Zoom call with up to 5 players during that legal tampering period, also able to finalize travel arrangements for players who agree to verbal deals over that timetable. So that was the only thing Pittsburgh, to my knowledge, proposed, and it did pass.
Should 1 foot twice equal 2 feet?
No, I like both feet down. I like being able to ask a lot of high-level athletes.
All right.
What do you think?
Yeah, I'm a traditionalist. I understand I understand both sides of it. I mean, especially if you get some of the crazy stuff. 1 cheek equals 1 foot. And,
True.
Some of the other stuff there. Why not 1 foot twice?
Fair, but I'll keep it as is. And just a quick note here before we read our next super chat. You guys have seen it on screen. 3 prospects came in for visits today. They were quarterback Kyle McCord, Minnesota corner Justin Wally, and Texas running back Jaden Blue. With some of the other reported ones, we believe we're up to 29 reported in official visitors. So we're getting close to our maximum of 30 and hopefully complete that by Wednesday at the latest.
Yeah, we think, based on reports, that R.J. Harvey will be on the list tomorrow. And we think Darius Alexander will be on the list. So there's 2 of the 3. Who's the mystery guest?
Who would you love to see be the 30th and final visitor, if there was one name? And I think a listener had a question about, is there somebody you wish Pittsburgh would have shown more interest in throughout this process? So it kind of falls in the same camp.
Well, because they supposedly went to Michigan to have at least the pro day dinner, you would have to think that if indeed that's true, Kenneth Grant was part of that. And they did not go to the Ole Miss pro day, other than who was that Ole Miss?
Andy Weidel was the headliner.
Andy Weidel there. I guess I'd like to see Walter Nolan come in.
Fair. I would say Iomanor, the receiver from Stanford, we're both pretty high on. Have not heard much about connecting him to Pittsburgh, even though likely an early day 2 guy, and Pittsburgh not really holding a draft pick to get somebody like that. But if there was a hypothetical draft day George Pickens trade, I'd love to bring in a guy like Iam Noor, provided the medical is clear on him.
If Walter Nolan does not come in tomorrow, as part of these 30, it's hard to mock him to the Steelers.
Yes,
now, he might be off the board anyway, and it might be a moot point, but it's really hard to mock him to the Steelers if he does not come through that door tomorrow.
Agreed. All right, super chat time. East Coast Runner with a $5 super chat. Thank you so much, man. He says, thank you, Steelers Depot, for the consistent podcast weekly. Love the longer podcasts on my 9+ hour drives. Much love, Dave, Alex, and Steelers Depot. Thank you so much, East Coast Runner.
Thank you for that.
Appreciate that.
Some people say that they're too long still, but we just talk, man. And it's easy for me to go down rabbit holes and make these shows probably an extra 15-20 minutes, and then Alex is guilty of, I got one more question for you,
I feed the beast
type of add-ons. But I mean, these shows have become kind of what they are, and it's not like we have anything more than like a 2-minute pre-production meeting on them. And I just it's part of my highlight to get on there for 90 minutes 3 times a week, and Alex and I discuss all things related to Steelers. It's almost like a phone. It's like a phone conversation that everybody gets access to hearing at this point. So we understand that it's not everybody's cup of tea, and we understand that probably the drop off rate, as far as full listens of shows, probably would be better if they were probably more condensed. But it's just kind of what we do.
The number of times you said, short show today, we'll keep it an hour. And then it's an hour and 45 minutes later, just how it goes sometimes. But I think most people enjoy it, and it certainly sounds like you do, East Coast Runner. So appreciate that, and safe travels out there on those long drives. Thomas Villa with a $5 super chat says, very nervous about this year's draft. I feel this year is vital. We have no margin of error for a miss on the first 3 picks. Every draft's important. I feel like we probably say that every season, but you're not wrong, Thomas, especially for a Pittsburgh team with a lot of needs, crucial year. They're trying to win. The angst and frustration over the playoff drought lingers and continues. To have only, again, 2 picks in the top 120, you got to really make them count. So, yeah, I think the margin of error point is accurate when you sit there and say you have 6 picks, 2 in the top 120. It's not a lot of darts to throw at the dartboard.
Man, you'd really like to see some of these first rounders start hitting as well too, and not that a guy, I mean, look, and by hitting I mean stay on the field. I mean, it's not, Fautano, obviously, hopefully he's going to turn out to be a good player, but how much did we actually get to see of him last year? So it goes beyond the draft, obviously. You hope these guys stay healthy.
Oh, you there, Dave? You dropped out for a second. Do we have Dave? I'm assuming Dave probably cut out from the YouTube live stream. Dave, you there? Looks like we're trying to reconnect with Dave. Chat, if you guys can just maybe let me know if you hear Dave, if we've lost him. I think we probably have here for the moment. Let's see. Do we have Dave? He's gone. All right, let me try to call Dave back here real quick. Just give me 1 second. We'll try to reconnect the call. I think we're good. I think I can do it this way, and then we'll get Dave's thoughts. See if we can get him back right now. See if we get Dave. We'll try to reconnect the call. I think we'll get it here in a second. But you guys see on screen the Bloodline article that I wrote this morning. Is they going to connect? Also, we're going to have to... Dave and I are the last 2 people in the world to use Skype, and they're getting rid of it, so we're going to have to figure out Microsoft Teams, it looks like, probably going forward. So that's going to be on our calendar for next month. Looks like we're not able to connect with Dave here at the moment, so we're going to try again here in just 1 second. I'm not sure if there was an issue on his end. Things look okay on my end, but something might have glitched out on my end. I don't know exactly what happened, so just kind of bear with us for 1 second. But I just going back to Thomas's super chat. Yeah, it's a really, I think, important year for Pittsburgh. Yeah, you heard the Skype sound. It's trying to connect, but not able to get it to fully connect, obviously. We're going to try again. Maybe bad time for that. You guys can't hear the Skype sound? Okay. I didn't know. I don't know. I never know exactly what all you guys can hear on my end. So sorry for the annoying Skype sound as I'm trying to get it to connect here with Dave and might be having some trouble accomplishing that. Let me try to send him a message. So apologize. We'll get back to your Steelers questions in just a second, and we'll figure it out here. Just give me 1 second. We'll answer some Steelers questions and then hopefully get back here with Dave in a second. So let me go ahead and do that. I sent Dave a message, so we'll figure it out here. And if not, we got next week too, to get your last second draft questions in. So let me answer one, and then as we try to navigate and get everything reconnected. But you guys can still hear me, right? I'm still just to at least have that for right now as we figure things out. Let's see from our next question. Eastside Legend, what is the chance the safety from South Carolina will be available at pick 21, Nick Eamon-Worry? I think a good chance. We just saw Malachi Starks get invited to the draft. He's likely to be the first safety taken. No guarantees, obviously, but I would say I like the odds of Eamon-Worry being there. Now, will he be the pick? We'll have to wait and see, obviously, but I do like the odds of him actually being available on the board at 21 when the Steelers select. Steel Pastor, we double dip at defensive line. Maybe trade back a few picks, get an extra third. Harmon is picked in the first. Which nose tackle, D tackles? In what order would you be looking at with that extra third or fourth round or later? I don't have an order for you. It's a lot of steps there. You'd love to trade down. Who's going to trade up in a weaker class? A lot of questions there, but possible. So I would say, I think Darius Alexander at round 3 at number 83, I think is a really good opportunity. I think some do view him as going earlier, and he could, but I think in a deep defensive line class with his age, he's 25, didn't have elite production in college, and didn't play at the biggest school either. Toledo's not small school, but it's not Power 4, it's not SEC. Those combination of factors could bring him down a little bit. I think it's realistic for Alexander to be there at number 83, and I would personally probably like him more than most of the other defensive line names. Got a message from Dave. It looks like his cable is out, so that looks like to be the issue of why the call cut out. So unfortunate there. We'll try to get Dave back if he's able to reconnect things. It's probably not up to him right now based on the cable company. But if we're able to do that, then we'll get Dave back on the call. Until then, you are stuck with me. So I'll go through the questions and ride solo here for a little bit. Again, if you guys could like to stream, would appreciate that. I know I haven't posted as much on YouTube lately. I'm going to try to be a little more active. Had a video on Broderick Jones just the other day. Have the live stream tonight. We'll have a live stream next Monday and also a live mock draft. Somebody said Walk the Mock is no longer a thing. I hadn't even checked into it. I hadn't heard from them, but I hadn't explored it. So is Walk the Mock no longer a thing? We can always find a different simulator, but that'd be unfortunate if that is the case. Alex, was it smart for them to wait on signing Watt? Now the price is sky high. No, I've criticized this team. I think they've totally screwed up the Watt situation. And, I know Ray Fittipaldo made a comment that the Browns really put Pittsburgh in a tough spot by the mega deal they gave Myles Garrett. I think Pittsburgh put themselves in a tough spot by not getting this deal done earlier, knowing that it was going to be a hot year for edge rushers with Garrett and Parsons and Hendrickson and Crosby. And, right now, Crosby and Garrett have gotten paid. So, yeah, I think Pittsburgh has not handled this situation well, and they're going to literally and figuratively pay the price for it and made what should have been a pretty easy extension with TJ Watt. He tops Bosa's number at $35 million, same guaranteed structure. Dude, we're bada bing, bada bang, we're done. Should have been the case, wasn't the case, and now Pittsburgh make things more complicated because I think TJ Watt's going to want to get paid more than Myles Garrett. Every agent wants their guy to get more than the previous name, and does TJ Watt want to be in second place behind Myles Garrett, the guy he's always compared to, class of 2017? It's always Watt versus Garrett in the AFC North. Garrett last year, after that Browns upset victory for Cleveland, called Watt number 2, that Garrett was number 1. The contract would reinforce that. I know Pittsburgh would love to probably pay less than $40 million per year, and structure and, guaranteed money matters more than just overall yearly value, but I think Watt is going to really want to top Garrett's number and be number 1 contractually. So it's a tough situation for the Steelers to navigate, and it's their own dang fault for doing it. Captain Spartan says, Ty Robinson, please visit. We'll see. That would be a good suggestion. We'll see if he's the last one there. Just kind of getting back with Dave. Yeah, we're going to have to see on getting Dave here reconnected. But I'm not sure if that's going to happen in the next half hour. David Kapoor says, Yins are my Steelers' favorite conversations and analysis. Thank you, David. You're always here in these live streams, so we appreciate that. Dark Shine the Kid says, really digging a trade down. I am too, but it's easier said than done. Takes two to tango. What's on the board? What are your offers? Who's trading up? Does somebody get in on the quarterback action, if not Pittsburgh, for a Dart or for a Milrow, now that they have been invited to the draft and suggests there will be first-round picks? Andrew says, I'm hearing Rodgers signs next Wednesday, day before the draft. I haven't heard that. I have no idea. I'm waiting. I would just love an answer sooner than later. So that would be great. I don't think it affects Pittsburgh's draft plans, though. If Rodgers, even if he is not signed, there is no official clarity. If there's a quarterback you love, you take him. You take a developmental guy, third, fourth round. That's fine. Rodgers is a one-year deal, short-term play, not a long-term option. You cannot be mad about it. If he has decided to not sign, Pittsburgh has to operate as if he's not here in the moment. And even if you assume he is on the roster and will sign, you want a long-term option, a younger option under contract. What else do we have here? Any new questions, since I'm kind of scrolling back now? Walk the Mock is still up, just no mention of live mocks. Okay, I'll have to look into it. I have not taken even a second to explore that. Quentin Chandler, pick 83, Howard or Shuck. Does Howard have a chance even though he didn't get a 30 visit? If you're talking, mid-round guys, you don't have to have the 30 visit. I mean, honestly, the way it had traditionally gone in Pittsburgh is first-round picks never came in for visits. Pittsburgh always went to them for pro days, and then they would draft partially off their 30-visit list in the mid-round. So if they were at the Ohio State pro day, though, with Tomlin and Kahn there, I think that squarely puts Howard in play in the third, fourth-round range. I like Will Howard more than most. I think him and Chuck are pretty similar. I gave the edge to Howard, though. I think a little more athletic, younger, a little more upside, little better touch, accuracy, layer, thrower, but they're pretty similar, a little more older school guys. So I would take Howard over Shuck. I think Shuck will get drafted ahead of Will Howard, but we shall see. And Dave says his cable is still out, and so probably not going to be able to reconnect tonight. But if we are, then I'll certainly effort that. When am I doing a live mock? I do not know. Before Thursday, I'll tell you that much, but I'll post it on the channel maybe later this week. It's not going to be tomorrow, not going to be Wednesday, maybe Thursday. If not, then early next week. Maybe Thursday might be the best day to do it. I have to double check my calendar, but I tentatively will think Thursday evening. It'll be in the evening at some time. Let's see, what else do we have here? Some questions about TJ Watt. Are you guys in favor of trading TJ Watt? Would you explore that if you're Omar Khan, if you're the organization? Here's my other thought too on that while I read your guys' answers. If you're Pittsburgh and you're signing Aaron Rodgers and then you're turning around and trading TJ Watt, it's like, what are you doing as a franchise? Are you trying to win now? Or are you trying to rebuild? It doesn't make any sense. And so they're really contradictory type of moves to do one and the other. I don't expect Watt to get traded. I'm not going to obsess over the Instagram photo, whatever that means, and debate all that kind of stuff. The deal's going to probably get done here this summer, probably, but I'm just not going to twist myself into a pretzel trying to figure out what one photo means. But I would not be in favor of trading TJ Watt for whatever it's worth. Let's see, what else do we have here? Steel Pastor, Steelers seem to be taking a very different approach to pre-draft visits, lots of positions with first and second round grades. Yeah, I'd have to compare to other years. There's kind of been a couple late names that have come in for visits. I mean, last year, Fautanu came in, and so that method of them going into first round guys and then bringing in the mid-rounders for visits might have been tweaked some. But if you look at their visit list, I'll pull it up here. It's still a lot of mid-round guys. A lot of defensive linemen are third, fourth round guys. Same with the running backs. And so I don't know if it's a whole lot different. There are probably some tweaks. You might be right. There are more first round, early round candidates for the, well, I should say, 3 of the visitors have been brought in for Pittsburgh are going to the draft in Dart in Shamar Stewart and Matthew Golden. Here's the list right here. The first round guys: Dart, Sanders. Who else? Golden, Harmon, and then Eamon Worry. Maybe Thomas, but probably not. Maybe Amos. That could be a late first round thing. So you're looking at, 4 or 5 first round names there on that list of 30. I don't know if that's totally out of character, but I'd have to check back to previous years and kind of be able to compare and contrast to the pre-Omar Khan era. Eamon Worry at 21, Will Howard 83, Caldwell 123, Gordon 156, Wally 186, Watkins at 223. What do I think? I try not to overanalyze, mocks and projections. You can make it a million different ways. I worry about who's playing defensive end. I guess Benton's kicking out in this scenario where Caldwell's going to play more nose. Yeah, I don't hate that. I don't know if I love that, but I can buy that though, Quentin, for sure. My Will Howard comp, it was so tough to do. I think I came in on, officially I have listed, who do I have listed for Will Howard? Is it Matt Hasselbeck or did I have that for Shuck? But then a little bit later, somebody had said like Matt Schaub to Will Howard, and I kind of buy that. I went a little older school because it's kind of hard to find a current quarterback who has that same game in this world of smaller, more athletic types. Who did I have as my official comp in my report? Let's go find out together. It was Hasselbeck is what I put for my comp there, but then somebody said later Matt Schaub, and I kind of like that because maybe Howard's a little more mobile, but that's kind of the profile that I had there, kind of that older school pocket passer. Howard can run. He's got like 4 different runs of 70-plus yards, but he's a straight line. He runs like Daniel Jones. It's a little awkward, a little clumsy, but there is some straight line foot speed. Looks like a lot of people saying they would not trade TJ Watt, but there are some saying they would trade TJ Watt. Alex is hiring Danny Smith's nephew, the biggest move the Steelers made this offseason, minus the DK trade. Only half kidding. Yeah, that's the new hire. It was not officially announced by the team, but it must have been updated over the last couple of days or week or so that Luke Smith is a quality control coach for Pittsburgh. It's a very generic name, but I'm going to assume and safely assume this. Luke Smith is the same as the Duquesne wide receivers coach, who was there for 8 seasons. And as you said, Mike is the nephew of Steelers special teams coordinator Danny Smith. And so I'm going to assume that's the Luke Smith that has been hired to serve an offensive quality control role. Not exactly the game-breaking coaching hire, but it is a new addition as the coaching staff has expanded by one. They've also, of course, replaced Aaron Curry and Grady Brown with Scott McCurley and Gerald Alexander being brought back after a season with the Raiders. Does anyone besides me think the DK Metcalf trade was too expensive? I don't know. I think a second-round pick is about right to pay for him. Now, the contract is also huge, but I think it's also basically what he was going to be worth. Maybe a little higher than what, other people could have expected, what the expectation was, I should say, for Metcalf. But in a trade with multiple suitors, you got to maybe pay up a little extra contractually, and it's minor overall. So that's about what I thought it'd be. Second round pick, $30 million per year was, I think, expectation of what he would fetch and what he got. Caleb Whisker, $5 super chat. Hey guys, amazing draft content again this year. Always appreciate it. Give me someone you're banging the table for on draft weekend for the Steelers. I'll have an article. It's one of many articles I have to get to of my guys. I did that last year. The guys that I view as, like, as you said, Caleb, I would bang the table for. I'll just give you one. It's not always the best players, but just guys you think will succeed in the NFL. I mentioned, I think, on the podcast today, Dan Jackson, the safety from Georgia, is going to be a core special teamer for the next decade. Like, he's probably not going to be a starter or star safety, but true hair on fire, all-out guy, walked on to Georgia, earned everything that he got there, never even had a scholarship during his time there. He lived off of NIL money, but going to be a great special teamer. He's going to play 10 years, make 3 Pro Bowls, be great, the menace on the kick and punt coverage team, a Jeremy Reeves type of guy. He tested well, had a good Senior Bowl week, good dude. So Dan Jackson's going to be that 6th, 7th round guy. He's going to be on your roster for a long time, much like a Tyler Medikevich in safety form, and just on your roster, high floor. That's going to be Dan Jackson. Let's see, what else do we have here? A lot of Highsmith discussion. Not sure where that's coming from, but you guys can hash it out. Artie, are the Steelers going to trade the first-round pick for more picks? Certainly a good reason to, when you have, as we talked about, only 2 picks in the top 120, no second-round selection, but who's buying? You're going to move down? Okay, that's fine, that's great, but who's going to trade up? Is the offer good enough? You never know what's going to happen in Pittsburgh. For whatever it's worth, and history is only that history, but they've only traded down one time since 2000. That was in 2001 under Kevin Colbert, a second draft, where he moved down 3 spots from 16 to 19 and still came away with Casey Hampton. Could there be another Texas defensive lineman this year in Alfred Collins, whose tape I was watching a good bit last night? I like him. Somebody mentioned in the chat earlier, too, about Tyleik Williams, who I like as well. I don't know if those guys are being talked about enough, Collins and Williams, maybe because they're viewed as early day 2 guys, and Pittsburgh's not sitting with a pick in range, but 2 guys we should be mentioning, I think, a bit more. Pittsburgh at both of those pro days for Collins, who was injured, and Williams as well. John Pennington is here asking about offensive linemen. We were talking on Twitter about that earlier. Alex, is there any offensive lineman you want to see the team draft? I'd have to think about it. I'm sure there's a couple. I didn't study O-line as closely this year in terms of the written reports. I did a handful of offensive linemen. I think a late round guy that I like probably more than where the NFL draft community is overall is Torricelli Simpkins III, the great name out of South Carolina. 1-year starter for them. He came up from North Carolina Central. Really physical, imposing run blocker. Really fits Pittsburgh's values. There's work to do technically, but he also showed some athleticism he can pull. He's got good burst and snap out of his stance. I think he was even a team captain for South Carolina for being a 1-year guy. Is pretty interesting, so some leadership qualities there. I think he's certainly a worthwhile, draftable, graded player, even though he's viewed as a likely undrafted free agent. I would certainly spend a late run draft pick on him if the board fell right and he was one of my higher graded players. I could certainly see that. In Pittsburgh, for offensive line depth, it's just not great right now. They had really good offensive line depth last year. You lose a bunch of free agents in Dan Moore and James Daniels and Nate Herbig. You have starters that get bumped up, and the depth behind is pretty concerning right now, to be honest with you. They need the starting offensive line to play really well. That's huge. They have to develop Roderick Jones and Fautanu, and Frazier has to continue to play well, and McCormick has to have a big second year, but the depth behind is shaky. It's Calvin Anderson. It's Spencer Anderson. It's Ryan McCollum. It's not looking too great right now. If there is a long-term injury where, say, Malu's out a month, the way that he was last year, James Daniels misses most of the year, as he did last year, can Pittsburgh really absorb that? If it's a 41-year-old Aaron Rodgers in the pocket, that is concerning. No question about that. All right, about 10 minutes left, and Dave sent a message saying that, there is an issue with his cable company, so unfortunate timing there, but we'll get Dave back next week and get him back there on the live stream. Also, Dave and I will have the podcast on Wednesday and Friday. What is the penalty for not hitting the 3-year 90% rule? Fine, loss of draft picks, organization gets shipped to Albuquerque. Good question. I'm sure Dave would be able to answer that a whole lot better than I could. I don't know. I don't know how they can compel a team to do that. I imagine there would be repercussions if some team stubbornly refused and said, we're just not going to do it. Fine, certainly restrictions on, I'm not even sure, you can't really restrict them on signing people, that'd be the whole point, but there would be certainly some punishment there where the league would step in because it is a requirement to do it, and teams that don't fulfill it, I'm sure, would be in trouble, but there's good incentive to spend your cap and to be competitive, so people think about the salary cap, but there really is a salary floor in a sense as well. Just one last call out to like the stream, would appreciate that, and we'll try to do these a little more often, or as often as possible. Like I said, we'll have the one next week, and I'll try to post on the channel a little more often, is what I'm trying to say. Nico, you think Johnny Barron has a chance to be the pick, or Malachi Starks? Love both of them. They're dark horses, they're sleepers. I've talked about the interest in safety that I think hasn't been discussed enough with Starks, with Eman Worry, with Makuba from Texas. Barron does check the boxes, and I could see it, but I don't know. I mean, I don't want to do the default, will he be there? I think there's a good chance he's gone by 21. It's possible. I'm not going to rule it out. It's really hard to say, but I think it'd be easy to sit there and say that is a less likely occurrence, but not a 0% chance there, Nico. Which running back would you get most excited in round 4? I'm going to do an article ranking the running backs. I've watched almost all the guys I want to watch. Who's going to go where once you get past, I guess, the top 2, maybe top 3 at Genty, Hampton, and Henderson from Ohio State. It's kind of a little jumbled up. Flavors, who do you want? Who's going to be running backs 4, 5, 6 to go? I like RJ Harvey. I like but didn't love Caleb Johnson. I like Devin Neal from Kansas. He's not getting talked about much. He didn't have a great combine workout. I think he didn't run a terrific time. I like Devin Neal's tape. So that kind of might be my guy if you're talking more round 4. But don't hold me to that right now. Who asked that? Who did? Who asked that question? That was Bryan. Yeah, that was Bryan. Josh Miller, what is your daydream best case scenario for night 1 of the draft, realistically speaking? I mean, okay, if you're asking daydream, trade down, somehow get a second-round pick or an early third, we'll say, but I'm daydreaming, so I'll take my second, and still draft Derek Harmon from Oregon. If you trade down from 21 to, call it 31, I'm just making up, the Chiefs there at 31. I'm not sure if they need D-line help with Chris Jones, but just go with me. Move down several spots, pick up a good day 2 pick, get Derek Harmon. I'm a pretty happy Alex at that point, Josh. Or Grant. Grant is possible. I like Derek Harmon more than Kenneth Grant. And Dave and I talked about that on the podcast today. I think Grant's a really interesting player, unusual and unique. But I don't know if Grant is as sturdy against the run as I would like him to be. I didn't love the run defense on tape, and Pittsburgh needs good run defense. Harmon can offer that and can still offer good juice as a pass rusher as well. Let's see. Mike asks, Alex, why do you think Nolan wouldn't be a good fit? Just from a size profile, height. What's his length? Mike, can you look up what is Walter Nolan's arm length? I just view him as a Milton Williams, undersized guy. I know that schematically fronts have blurred between odd front and even front, but for a team that needs good run defense, I don't know if Nolan's going to be that super steady, consistent 2-gapper that keeps linebackers clean. I think Harmon, even Grant, and then Collins and Williams and even mid-round guys like Darius Alexander, Ty Robinson, who's Dave's guy, really like that, can bring that more. So that's kind of where I come in. And then there's some rumored, character stuff with Nolan. I don't know if that's true. I'm really careful to dive into that too much. You look at Bob McGinn's scout speak talk thing, that newsletter, there were some concerns expressed by scouts. It was a lot of weird stuff, though. He went to a bunch of high schools and colleges, but it's like, is that character concerns? Is that just the college football landscape we live in? There was some reported investigation when he went to Tennessee for improper benefits, but who cares in the world of NIL? It's not really a big deal. But just schematically, his size profile, his game, more that one-gap penetrator. Pittsburgh does that, some of that obviously, but I just don't love the fit for what Pittsburgh needs right now, coming off of that terrible way at the end of the year where the run defense really, really wilted. Yeah, 32.5-inch arms. It's not bad, but it's not ideal for a guy that's a bit shorter in height and with a lack of length. I don't love that combination. Does Farmer make it to the third, steal past her? I think so. I think Josh Farmer will make it to the third. That's probably about where he's projected to go, third, fourth round in this deep D-line class. Telling you all, Jackson Dart, it could be. I have no idea what happens to the quarterbacks. Cam Roy's going to go first overall. From there, I'm out. I have no idea who's going where at quarterback. And Pittsburgh will certainly, I think Pittsburgh will draft a quarterback. Will it be first round? We'll see. But one of the many questions for this year's draft. If we trade down to 30 or 31, will there be any blue chip defensive linemen left? I think no, so it wouldn't be worth it. Well, I was daydreaming, and that was my daydream. So, that's kind of me entertaining the question there. Do I think Harmon will be there at 31? I would guess no, but you never know. Could Grant be there? And then you go back, okay, Alfred Collins, Tyleek Williams. That's not crazy to take those guys at 31. I wouldn't be mad about that if I'm getting a second-round pick as well. I think I would, if you're asking between Derek Harmon at 21 and no second-round pick, or Alfred Collins or Tyleek Williams at 31 and I get a second-round pick, I think I'm going to do the latter. I think I'm going to take Williams and the pick. Is he a better run defender than Caldwell? I'm not sure who you're referring to. Nolan, Tommy? I don't know if you can clarify. Yeah, I really like Tyleek Williams. He's elite against the run. There is some pass rush juice. It's not going to be high end, but 3-4 sacks a season with really good run defense. I'm all about that. Make sure I didn't miss any other questions. Maybe I missed something a bit earlier. Pirates are winning too, which is a rarity, but it is Skeens Day. Let's see, what else do we have here? Any other questions you guys want to get in? Yeah, I mentioned earlier, Eastside Legend. I think Eman Worry will be there at 21. I think Malachi Starks projected to be the first safety off the board. He's been invited and will be attending the draft. No guarantee that happens, but I like the odds of Eman Worry being there. Will Pittsburgh take him? We'll see. They have shown interest in the top safeties, especially Eman Worry. Gerald Alexander worked him out at the South Carolina Pro Day. Eman Worry came in for a visit, but we'll see. What is your opinion on Trevor Lawrence? Can he still develop? I'm just glad we're past all the Trevor Lawrence trade talks, from which feels like forever ago. Can he develop? Yeah, he can develop. I mean, I haven't studied Lawrence in particular, but yeah, I don't think Jaguars fans, with Liam Cohen, who's been a great offensive coach and really good mind, they should not give up on Trevor Lawrence. Yeah, no, Tommy, I know you're talking about, I know you're talking about Caldwell, but you said, is he a better run defender than Caldwell? Who is the he? Is it Grant you're referring to? Who am I comparing Shamari Caldwell to? Is what I'm trying to ask for there. A $2 super chat from Thomas, Dave's cable bill, so I will password along to him. Does Najee have a career year with Harbaugh? Yes, I think Najee Harris is a great fit for the Chargers for that style of offense. Big, physical, rough and tumble. It's a really good fit, and so, I don't know how, career year in terms of yards per carry, but I think Harris will have a really good season. I think the Chargers will be happy with the signing they made. Alex, do you like running back, safety, or corner round 3? Obviously best available, but what's the higher need in your mind? Yeah, it's just tough to talk about in those kind of terms. You really have to look at a board. You're drafting, people and players, not just positions. It just depends on really who's there. You could argue for all those things. I mean, running back is probably the most immediate need. You have Slay, you have your starting safety, so it's a little less of an urgency there. So I might go running back off of that, but it's a deep class and you can probably wait. And if your O-line develops and you draft a running back, might matter less. So I don't know. I mean, safety in round 3, I assume the top 4 guys of Starks and Eman Worry and Watts and Makuba will be gone, and there's a pretty good fall off there. I might go corner. If I can get a really good slot corner in round 3, I might do that, Captain Spartan. Josh Miller, what's the one position for Pittsburgh that's getting floated around that you think is the most expendable for this draft? I'm not entirely sure what you mean. That's most expendable, so as in the position they wouldn't have to draft that's being talked about. I mean, quarterback is one of them. I'm a go big or go home guy. Quarterback, take one in the first round or don't take one at all. That's generally the path to how teams have success. Most of the top rated teams have first round quarterbacks that they've drafted and are homegrown. Look around the division with Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes in the conference, Josh Allen, CJ Stroud. Look around the NFC, Jaden Daniels. You get the idea. I think receiver's not. You're keeping Pickens this year. I think you can wait on receiver. That guy's not going to probably have a big role for you in year number 1, especially if Aaron Rodgers is in your lineup. He typically doesn't have a lot of success with rookies. You have Pickens, you have Metcalf, you're in a run-oriented offense. You have Freiermuth, you have Calvin Austin, you have Roman Wilson year 2. I know Pickens last year, if his steal, You could think ahead and try to get that guy to really replace Pickens for next year. I get that, but I'd probably say receiver is not as big of a need in my mind as it would be in maybe the minds of some others. Pirates have the bases loaded. Can I do anything with it? Bryan Reynolds at the plate. Give you a little play-by-play there. How many years did the Steelers sign Arthur Smith for? That was a 3-year contract, so he's in year 2. The contract runs through 2026. Why did they let go of Daniels? He was a great guard. They could have kept him for cheap. He signed $8 million per year. They were planning to move on without him. They, had the injury not occurred, he would have cashed in at $17+ million per season. So I understand why they let Daniels go, and we'll see how McCormick does to replace him. 3-0 Pirates. That's good. If social media was available, what do you think the conversation would have been about Tom Brady coming out in the 6th round? Probably not a lot, because how much are we talking about 6th-round quarterbacks right now? How much are we talking about Brady Cook from Missouri, or whoever else you want to put there, Graham Mertz from Florida, whatever late-round quarterback you want to discuss? How much talk on Brock Purdy was there a couple years ago? Almost none. You'd be talking about, I don't know, who were the other quarterbacks? Who was T. Martin was, that group of quarterbacks taken before Tom Brady. It would have been, you just don't know about those guys that become Tom Brady's until they become Tom Brady's. That's the story, the mystique. They went from unknown, no one talked about them. But it would be something about, he was battling for his job with, was it Drew Henson at Michigan? Is it Henson or Stanton? I think Henson. And it just, it'd be about, the physical tools aren't great. He's sloppy body. He runs a 5-second 40. It's a world of athletes. That'd probably be the discussion, albeit limited, on Tom Brady. Yes, I see McCormick starting at right guard this year. If not, I don't know who's going to be at right guard, but it should be Mason McCormick. Jason. Yeah, definitely talking about how slow Tom Brady is. I've not really dug into Loveland. I haven't watched much of the top tight ends. I mean, casually, Tyler Warren and some of Loveland. They'll be the top 2 tight ends taken. We'll see who goes first. Loveland has a shoulder injury. That's not helped him. Warren's also been dinged up a little bit, but we'll see. I thought one of those guys would go to the draft. I don't know if they declined their invites. Maybe the health issues had something to do with it, but I thought Warren or Loveland would get drafted, and so, or would attend, I should say. They'll, of course, get drafted. And I wonder if that means maybe they'll go a little bit lower than some people think. Dave and I had that exercise about who would you essentially guarantee will be off the board by 21, and I didn't put either tight end in that camp. I think one of them will be gone, but I couldn't tell you which, and the other one might be on the board at number 21. Drew Henson? Was it Henson? Okay. And Brian Greasy was there too? I don't remember that. You're probably right, Mike, but I just remember Henson and Brady being the Michigan quarterbacks during that time. Can they trade Corliss for a good draft pick? No. I mean, if anything, late in camp, you flip him for a 7th. They traded that with Braden Mann 2 years ago. But you got to get Cameron Johnson in camp, see if he's healthy, how he looks, all that kind of stuff, and you go from there. But if you're going to trade him, it's going to be for minimal value, not a good draft pick. Prediction for your biggest night 1 shocker could be non-Steelers related. I don't know. I mean, quarterback will be interesting. I don't know what the shocker will be, but I think in a year where the draft class is not as strong at the top, you get more surprises in that 10 to 15 kind of a range, and even late first round guys that don't get talked about a lot. Ezeraku from Boston College might be one of those guys. Travion Henderson. I mean, is 3 running backs in the first round a shocker? Probably not, but I guess that'd be my only answer I can think of right now as a shocker in this analytics world that seems to be anti-running back. But you look at Barkley and Derrick Henry and Josh Jacobs last year. Granted, veterans, not draft picks, but you see the value of running back in an offense. Maybe that compels teams to address it this year. All right, any other questions? Who's your favorite for 21? Jason, are you asking, if you can respond quickly, my personal favorite or the favorite I think will be drafted? Like odds-on betting favorite for 21. Either way, I'm not really sure. I'm not going to probably give you a good answer, but I want to clarify that first. And Tommy, did you ever respond about Caldwell? I don't know if I saw any follow-up there. But Caldwell can stop throwing. There's no question about that. So that's what you'd be drafting him for. Personal favorite, I will have an answer at some point. It's probably Derek Harmon. I've talked about him since January. It was the first report I did. But I can't tell you 100% right now. I would certainly be open and listening to trade down opportunities, but again, you don't really know that until it's draft day, you're on the clock, or pretty darn close to it. Abdul Carter falls out of the top 5, says Captain Spartan. Okay, I like it. What's your honest opinion on the job that Khan has done 2 years in? That's a big question to close things out. You're still evaluating some of those young draft picks and understanding their career arcs, and the book's not closed on any of those guys yet. I'd have to think about it. It's a mixed bag, like any GM. It's certainly not been amazing. There's been some good on paper looking draft classes where it looks really good when the smoke clears after draft weekend. How good has it been down the road? But it's also about coaching and development, and those things go beyond the scope of GM. So, GM's job is to evaluate talent. The coaching staff must develop the talent, and then the front office must retain the talent. So that's kind of the buckets each thing gets put into. It's been acceptable. It's been fair, I guess, to give a really pithy answer to it, but I'd have to think about it more, and it's probably hard to give a good answer to such a big question like how well is the GM done. So we're going to wrap things up. There'll be an archive version of this on Steelers Depot and on my YouTube channel for you guys to go check out. So be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and check out the site, SteelersDepot.com. Reminder, live stream next Monday. I'll post about my mock draft when we go live. Maybe Thursday. I'll let you know. But thank you again, and we'll talk to you soon.